Hello everybody, Miss Sarah here from Girls Inc., ready to get into the experiment groove with everyone. In this video, we are going to be building a prosthetic leg, and this is something that biomedical engineers do. Let's go over some keywords that we'll be using in this experiment that you'll really want to have a solid understanding of first. So the first one is prosthesis. That's an artificial body part to replace one that is missing. Prosthetics, a specialty of medicine and engineering that designs, constructs, and fits artificial limbs and body parts, which we just learned are called prosthesis. Prototype, an original, full-scale, and usually functioning or working model of a new product or a new version of an existing product. By the end of this experiment and this video, you should be cognizant or aware of the considerations that go into developing a quality prosthesis, while also identifying some major characteristics and features important for a prosthetic leg. Finally, you'll be able to analyze and brainstorm a prototype of a prosthetic leg, while maybe even being able to think of some suggestions for design improvement. All right, let's get started. So our task today is to create a prosthetic leg from the knee down. Now I'm gonna use myself for a model here, but if you're at home and have a sibling or a family member who you want to design for, that's totally fine too. Before we get started with the instructions and the how-tos, I want us to think about who might need a prosthetic. There are many people who are in need of various types of prosthesis. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking about people who maybe have been in accidents, some people who are born without limbs, or maybe even veterans. Are there any more that you can think of that you can kind of discuss in and of yourselves? Or if you're curious, now would be a good time to pause the video and do some independent research for your own. While conducting this research, try to see if you can brainstorm different ideas and inventions aside from a prosthetic that could help someone. But for those of us who are going to continue on here, let's just keep it moving. Medical advancements are constantly happening thanks to the hard work of engineers and innovative thinkers, especially in terms of materials and functionality of a technology. While we work, I want you to keep in mind a few questions. First, what's the difference between invention and innovation? Or is there a difference? To me, I think of an invention as the first of its kind, right? I think of innovation as an update or an improvement to an invention. That's more along the lines of what we're going to be doing here today. Biomedical engineers and medical professionals are constantly looking for ways to improve prosthetics, maybe making something more water resistant or having more athletic capabilities like snowboarding or even riding a bike. Today, we're going to create a prosthetic leg in one of the simplest functions for walking. If you're thinking, well, wait a minute, Miss Sarah, I want to make a prosthetic skate or hand or tennis racket, I encourage you to do that. Please go for it. We will use a similar brainstorming process, so please don't let me hold you back. So let's talk about materials for this prosthetic prototype. Today, I'm going to use some of the things that were most accessible to me from the Girls Inc. office and my house. While we do this, think about the access that medical professionals can use and how that's different than what we have readily available to us. The function is similar, right? A lot of great ideas start with access to what everybody has. Then when you get to become a person or professional in STEM or working for a university or a corporation company, you have access to even greater resources. So anyway, for today, I have a big box of things. So I actually found what looks like a wrapping paper roll, and I actually measured it out so that it fits perfectly from my knee to the ground. So that's what I'll be using as the primary base. So I'm gonna put that maybe a little bit over actually. Next, let's see, I have a box, just plain cardboard. There's some stuff in it, but I'm gonna see if there's anything I could really figure out here. So I'm gonna put that maybe here. Next, I grabbed a towel. I thought of this maybe in terms of comfort. So when somebody puts a knee on a prosthetic, it probably wouldn't feel so great here. So I thought maybe something for comfort. So I found that here, make that, fold it here. I have some duct tape. Oh, some dirty duct tape, but that's okay because there's other stuff in it. So I have some duct tape. I also have some masking tape. So similar function, but different outcomes maybe. Ooh, there's a lot of like fuzzies on it, that's okay. I have some pipe cleaners. I have, let's see, some dowels. They're a little bit smaller, so I'm not sure that I'll use them, but maybe. I have this fuzzy yarn kind of material, which also I think is stuck to the duct tape, which is okay. And let's see, I have some clamps that I found here. Oh, clamps that I found here. And then some brass fasteners. Oh, and some paper clips that I really don't want to fall out of the box. So paper clips, just regular paper clips. I'll put there, put that back on top. And then also these really tiny little brass fasteners that you can actually open up. And so these are brass fasteners. Maybe you've seen them on like a notebook paper or maybe a filing folder, but they're pretty much just to make things stay together. Finally, have just some popsicle sticks, some cups, regular paper cups, and popsicle sticks, which are also a little bit smaller, but that's okay. And these random easel things, again, stuck with our fuzzy kind of maneuver. But there's a bunch of them still in there, but I'm not gonna take them all out because I think one kind of does the job here. And then I also have some hot glue happening here. So I feel like this is pretty extensive in terms of things that I could need. Obviously, I would like to have a little bit more access to maybe some stronger materials, but again, we're just working on things that we have at home and access to us. And also, didn't say this, but if you are going to do this, please don't start taking things off your walls or off the couch. You have to ask for parent guardian permission before you just start taking things to do this activity. So had to send that out there. Okay, so I am actually just gonna condense a little bit because now we are going to design and create our own prosthetic lower leg. We will be doing a prototype, but it is really important to go through a little bit of brainstorming. So while I do this and just kind of keep it all to the side. Again, clean workspace, it's important, but sometimes you just have a lot and you don't know what to do with it all, and that's okay too. So what I'm going to do, I am going to bring out a whiteboard. If you have paper at home, if you have anything, if you're like, I'm really not great at drawing, that's okay. I think it's important for us to kind of write down our thoughts and ideas. But even before this, it's essential for us to think of the many considerations for prosthesis. So while I start getting my materials kind of together and all forming, why don't you do the same, and I'll catch you back here just a minute if you have to do that. And if not, we'll keep going. So if you're anything like me, you are really not the most artistically inclined, but it is important to get some brainstorm down. So looking at all of my materials, I'm gonna try to keep all my thoughts in order and get a general idea of what I want to build. So I am going to be using the design process to try to define or understand what's at the center of the task here. And for us, that's building a lower prosthetic. And like I said, that's one that attaches at the knee. And we're gonna do that to help a client or person who could be in need for a variety of reasons, but for the sake of this experiment, you're gonna wanna ask who you're creating this for, or ask the person that you are creating it for. And I'm making it for myself with the intention of just mild motion, including walking. Next, I'm gonna think up some creative ideas, and I'm gonna assess my materials here and see what we can do with it and where we can go with it. So again, I'm not the drawer, I'm not the artist, but I'm going to try my best. So what I'm going to do, also if I find out that anybody is pausing this video and really laughing, it's gonna hurt and I won't be happy, but I get it. So I'm gonna start by using this as the base of my prosthesis, of my prosthetic rather. So I'm gonna draw that here. I'm gonna, again, do my best. So this is gonna be my base. I'm gonna call this the base here. And then I'm gonna call this the top. So something that I wanna consider when creating this, I wanna make sure that it's comfortable for the person that's using it. So I have this towel, which I think would be a good place to start for the top. If you're gonna place your knee on something, you definitely don't wanna put it right on this cardboard. I think that would hurt a little bit. So I'm gonna put a little list here. I'm gonna say towel, because I think that would make sense up there. And maybe this yarn, I'm not sure, let's see. And again, this is not necessarily a plan that you absolutely have to use, but just a way to kind of keep your thoughts in order here. So at the base, I'm also thinking that you can't just balance and walk just on the bottom, something like this. You'd probably need a bigger base. So I think what I'm gonna do is use this extra cardboard box that's hidden under our popsicle sticks and easel. So I'm gonna say cardboard box, like I just said. All right, and then I think what's going to kind of keep everything all together, like I said, I do have a hot glue gun, but I also kind of want to use tape. I feel like that might be a little bit more, I don't know why I feel that that might be a little bit sturdier. I feel like anytime I use a hot glue gun, it's always just kind of falling apart, but might be a personal thing. And then I think as I go along, I definitely want to use the clamps. And I definitely want to use cups some way, somehow. I feel like those, when they're put upside down and on top of each other, they actually are pretty strong. And I can also cut some things around and see what works. So again, this is not the most extensive brainstorm, but it is helping me kind of figure out where everything's gonna go. So I'm going to move my brainstorm to the side. It's okay, if you didn't brainstorm, that's fine. If you're just thinking things in your head, that's also fine, but this is helpful for me. So let's think, I'm gonna try to build the base first, because I do feel like that's something that just would kind of set a strong foundation. I think I'm gonna primarily use tape. I just find that it's a little bit easier for me to work with. Anytime I use hot glue, it's hit or miss. But I am gonna start with the base because I think that is one of the most important parts. Often in real prosthetics, a shoe is the base because it's not so great to be able to balance and walk on something this small. So, I am gonna try, I was gonna try to put a scissor and make it that way, but I think I might just try a little hot glue maneuver, although I just said it's not the most useful. But you know what would be a good idea is to plug the hot glue in, you know. But you know what, maybe it's not for you. Maybe you have these powers where you're like, I can actually think, and the hot glue gun turns on. So while I wait there, I'm also gonna think maybe for the top. So we said some towel action, and I think what makes sense for me is maybe something like this. Although it doesn't make the biggest surface area for me to put my knee, so maybe we can continue to add on with the yarn that we have. But this is where I'm gonna start while the hot glue turns on. So I'm going to start at the top, unfortunately, because I didn't prepare well enough. But it definitely would be easier if I had a base, right? It wouldn't be as wobbly if it was, you know, attached to something else. So we're gonna do one of these maneuvers. The old bring around, which, you know what? It might not work, but that's okay too. So here, it's a little bit lopsided, and that's okay. Because you know what? We can also take it off. That's one of the other things about tape. It's not permanent. Whoa, weird noises. Sorry guys. Sorry everybody at home. Loud, weird, she's making noises, she's doing it all. And it's not even on straight, but that's okay. I'm gonna give it a rip and then try to manipulate after. Okay, of course. How about scissors? How about that? Okay, go. Scissors, also not wanting to function, but that's fine. Everything's fine. There we go. So this is not what I thought it was gonna look like. But again, it's just while the hot glue, which I was just talking smack on, is heating up. I'm like, tape is so much easier. Tape is so much easier. So although it's not the most aesthetically pleasing, it definitely is more comfortable than it was before. So I might think before I unwrap it and try to do it again. So, but this was a tough material to work with, which I don't really remember it being so hard before. Okay. So now that our hot glue is hopefully feeling okay, I'm going to try to get the base in motion now. So I am going to use the marker that I was using before to kind of figure out where I want this base to be. And again, it's not going to be the same as if we were actually designing or if we were using a shoe, because I actually didn't have any extra shoes in the office. But if I was home, I would probably use that. And I probably wouldn't hot glue something to my shoe, but I would try to figure out a way, maybe if it was stuffing a towel or something else, to keep it in its place. But for right now, so I drew this circle, question mark, on the box. It's a little bit wonky, but that's okay, no stress. All right, so what I am going to do is bring our handy dandy glue gun, and let's see if I can make a circle yet again. Oh, aha, here we go. Oops, I definitely should have taken the stand down, but that's okay. I mean, that's precision right there. All right, so let's again keep a safe working space. I'm going to try my best to kind of hold this here. And while I did measure from my knee down, this might make it a little bit taller. That's something that biomedical engineers also have to consider, right? The different sizes of things and lengths. So that's something to also know. Ooh, so it feels a little top heavy here, because I'm feeling if I let go, it leans back a little bit, and it's definitely because I have some more weight back here. So let's see, maybe I can play around with it. And if not, oh, I'm gonna put a little bit more glue in the front, maybe add something else. What else? Okay. I might have to lean it a little bit more. Oh, that's okay. May have to lean it a little bit. Okay, all right, so yeah, again, not perfect. Oh, we've got the webbies. Not perfect, but for what I have here, I'm not mad at the start. So I'm trying to think what else would be something that would be necessary for a prosthetic. So I'm trying to think in terms of stability, right? So this is a lot thinner than its base, so it might not be as strong in terms of movement. So let's think about some other things here. Maybe I could rip one of these off. I guess that wouldn't make too much sense, because I have dowels and paper and popsicle sticks. But actually, what if I pulled a little bit of, so this easel would be something that I could lean something back on, and it is leaning a little bit this way. So what if I pulled it back a little bit here? I feel like a lot of glue. And it's definitely not the most aesthetically pleasing, but if it works, it works. At least for the sake of this experiment. This is a little random, but it's okay. All right, so I'm going to, maybe in terms of design, something also to consider, right? Which is kind of what I've been focusing on a little bit too much here in terms of aesthetics, but I'm gonna maybe make it, you know what, I'll save that for the end. I'm going to glue this back a little bit more, even if it's something to connect to something else, it'll just give it a little bit more stability. So again, getting my glue gun, I'm gonna put it, I measured out, well, I didn't measure out, but I eyeballed out where I figured these would stay. So again, just putting some dots here. And then I'm going to put another one just in the center to try to ground that out. So I'm going here, and I'm also gonna pull it back to what I believe is straight. and just kind of plop it down and give it both a decent bit of a hold. So what I'm looking at here, again, you got the hot glue little webs, but it's okay. It's gonna stick with me, but that's also okay. So I'm trying to think if this is okay. It's still leaning, but it feels, at least to me, a little bit better. Oh, I spoke a little soon, but that's okay. All right, okay, so I have a lot of materials on here that I haven't even figured out where they're gonna go. I said I really wanted to use clamps, I really wanted to use cups. I was gonna put yarn at the top. Maybe I'll do another little yarn, but it's pretty fragile at the bottom. But I'm going to use these things. We will figure out a way. So I'm actually, instead of looking for the bottom of this, I'm gonna just start cutting and figuring out where I can use it. So even if that means just kind of making it a little bit better looking, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So this is like a magic trick right now. Remember, just like when they pull things out of their, okay, never mind. Never mind on that one. I'm gonna cut again here. And, oh, okay, I know what I'm gonna do. I am going to make a little pattern of traction here so that the bottom of this box won't slip and fall. And I know that this is yarn and probably not the best in terms of traction, but I still think that it's going to work for the materials that we have here. So I'm gonna put that like that. I'm gonna put that like that. I'm gonna get some more glue. I'm gonna pick it up and then I'm gonna put it on the bottom. So again, we're working through some things here. I'm gonna use the hot glue, kind of put it on the top, try to put it on the bottom, get a little more traction at the bottom. So, oops, okay, here we go. Oh, it's not great, but it's not terrible, but it's not great. And I definitely want to keep moving because hot glue dries pretty fast. All right, let's get to moving. All right, now, oh boy. All right, oh my goodness. It's like an oven mitt, but not because it's on the bottom and it's gonna be good for our traction. So I'm gonna put, in my mind, I'm check towel, check yarn, check cardboard box, a little bit uneven, but I'm feeling pretty confident in it. I think that it could honestly be useful either way. And so without a shoe, it'd be hard to tell what's the front, what's the back. But I think with this one, it's a little bit more versatile. So I think I'm actually just gonna let this be. I know I had a lot more materials that I thought would be helpful, but you don't have, just because you have all of them doesn't mean you have to use them. So I'm gonna let this sit for a little bit. So I'm gonna look back on what I've done here, what I have made, what I have created, maybe some things I could do better next time, if you know what I mean. So I came to this experiment with a bunch of materials thinking I was going to use every single one. But in all actuality, when I started making and creating, I realized that some of the materials just weren't gonna be very helpful. So looking back, I really like what I did in terms of the comfort for the knee, but I definitely should have started at the base, right? Because then I think I could have gotten a little bit of a stronger foundation, really. And definitely working from the top down made it a little bit wonky. Again, in retrospect, maybe I wouldn't have used yarn as the traction, but kind of creative, so I'm not terribly upset about it. And then this is a little bit confusing to me. The easel is, as much as it is confusing you too, I'm sure. But I needed a little bit extra stability. And I know I said I really wanted to use the clips and the cups, but I really couldn't think of any other ideas to put them on there. But maybe you have some ideas at home, and hopefully yours looks or is a little bit more functioning. But now that we are at the end of our experiment and this design process, let's reflect as a whole. And again, I just went over some things that really worked for me, like the towel, but some things that didn't really work for me, like the yarn. So maybe you can think about that for yourself too. Again, in terms of things that I would change, I would definitely work from the bottom up instead of top to bottom, and maybe have just a little bit more brainstorming time I feel like I kind of rushed through it. But what are other materials, household or not, that would have been beneficial for you in this project? Maybe you could consider some different fasteners, or for me, fasteners at all, because I didn't even use them. What would be different if you had to make a whole leg prosthesis, including a knee? And finally, what design constraints or limitations might be different for biomedical engineers developing a real prosthesis? So looking ahead, you could really start thinking about technologies and inventions and innovations that could impact members of your community or even members around the world. While we didn't have access to the most top-of-the-line materials, that's kind of a dig at myself, engineers realized that all materials have pros and cons. And if material is difficult to work with, you have to get creative or find a way for it to work. In my case, it's wrapping paper. In your community, you could see if your local hospital or even rehabilitation center is able to show you a real prosthetic or maybe give you a tour of a unit. You're able to do independent research, seeking out opportunities and knowledge about the most up-to-date medical professionals and their advancements. In conclusion, I have to let you know how proud I am of all of you for sticking through, laughing along with me, not being too judgmental in what I have created here. But remember, if you can laugh at yourself, then you are already ahead of the rest. Thank you so much for coming and watching this video. This is Miss Sarah with Girls Inc. saying stay strong, smart, and bold. Thank you.